Hello dear viewers, welcome to this edition of the News in English with me, Serge Nhore. Let us start with the headlines. Rwanda Revenue Authority has announced that there is going to be an analysis on how penalties related to tax payments can be eased. The 2023 Afya Health for All conference is currently taking place here in Kigali. Rwanda's Ministry of Gender and Family Promotion has announced that women and girls have been making progress in technological development, but also highlighted difficulties. And now the details. Rwanda Revenue Authority has announced that there is going to be an analysis on how penalties related to tax payments can also be eased, as different institutions are revising on how taxes in general can be modified to increase the country's tax base. We have the details with Prince Manzi.
In the Rwandan Parliament, the deputies in the National Budget and Patrimony Committee and the commission composed of the Ministry of Finance and Economic Planning and the Rwanda Revenue Authority, they are revising the Bill of Law on the taxation system in Rwanda. In the revision on this Bill of Law, it is expected that representatives of different institutions, both private and non-government, will provide ideas. This Bill of Law is expected to answer the issue highly raised by taxpayers on strong penalties imposed. Justin Gashaija, an entrepreneur in the Association of Wood Sellers in Gisozi, Adarwa, requests for the revision on penalties imposed on taxpayers. Fines, either from the Rwanda Revenue Authority or from the traffic, are higher than our incomes. The first issue is that we have good and foreseeing leadership, but the fines are higher to the extent people are not able to pay. The Commissioner General of the Rwanda Revenue Authority, Pascal Bizimana Ruganinwari, states that the issue of penalties that seems to be a burden to taxpayers will also be tackled on while revising the law on taxation. We are developing a research to all types of taxes because we have different types, and we are tackling on one at a time. Our prime purpose is to reduce the tax rate where possible. As people continue to understand the importance of tax payment, we have to reduce also the penalties so that people can understand the importance of lining with the law. We penalize one who did not abide by the law, but penalizing evasively can also be not a solution, because someone can be mistaken, and the mistaken should not be considered as someone who did it on purpose. But because he did it on purpose, it definitely means that he committed the crime. So he should be followed up as someone who committed the crime, but not in the tax consideration. Instead, what we want is for taxes to be fair.
The
chairperson of the National Budget and Patrimony Committee, Omar Munyaneza, states that the penalties were eased for the revenue of the taxpayer to increase. The new is that when we take an example of someone who communicated the way he'll be paying taxes and then states that my property, my plot of land, I'll be paying this amount, and then the time reaches before the payment. Such person usually faced penalties, but in this Bill of Law, such penalties were deducted. This is a great thing that is in favor of citizens and taxpayers in general, because sometimes we find that someone had to pay taxes worth 10 million, but because of penalties he's paying like 50 million. So the uniqueness of this law is that even though it is not to deduct taxes specifically, but at least the profit rate on penalties was considered. The National Budget and Patrimony Committee, as well as the Ministry of Finance and Economic Planning and the Rwanda Revenue Authority, are working on how this Bill of Law will be approved before February this year. Prince Manzi, RwandaTV News.
Health workers on the continent have noted that a disease-free Africa requires efforts to prevent disease and self-sufficiency in medicines, vaccines, and medical equipment. This was announced at the two-day 2023 Africa Afya Health for All conference that is taking place here in Kigali. We have the details on that. As noted in the conference organized by the Jesuit Justice and Ecology Network Africa in collaboration with Rwanda's Ministry of Health, the African continent has a serious problem of a lack of medicines, vaccines, and other medical equipment.
Some areas it will take days for the supplies to reach. Facilities in the faith-based, we purchase these commodities at a very high cost. We are talking of Africa producing their own medicine and vaccines here in Africa and for Africa. For me, this is the best dream that can come true. Because it means like if we have a plant in Kenya whereby we can produce these drugs and not waiting like for the government to purchase from Japan, from South Africa, from where else, it means being produced in Kenya, for example, and supplied from Kenya, one, it won't be affordable. Affordability is one of the key determinants of health. Two, it won't be accessible. Accessible in the manner that we are not likely to run short of. Africa being dependent of the Western world to receive most of their sustainability has really made Africa to remain behind. Yet we produce almost 90% of the raw materials that they use. I want to use an example of malarial drugs. The plants they are using are planted in Kenya, the artemether drug. They are coming to pick it from there. We are giving them at a very low price, I know. And when that medicine comes, it is very expensive to purchase.
We don't have enough investment in manufacturing of pharmaceuticals and other related products in health. Secondly, infrastructure-wise, we need good infrastructure to facilitate those manufacturing and processing. Third, I can say it's knowledge. We need people who knows how to do it. It's easy for me to think out of Africa, a manufacturer who can do drugs and purchase, than thinking investment. Because investment itself requires a lot of capital. There's at least a standard you have to reach in order to get approval either by local regulation body, for example, if it's Rwanda FDA, or international regulation body, if you want to export it. And all those is not only investment, but it's also people who knows how to do it. What we have seen in the past, some African countries have tried their best, but also with the help of private sector and the public sector, that is the government, to put in place some funds to help people think how to build industries in their region or in their countries. So for Rwanda, I can say we have all in place, but what we need now to find people who are interested in our market. Because also industries, when they want to implement themselves somewhere, they look their market they have and potential buyers across not only that country, but also across neighboring country. So the challenge is there, but we still to work hard. We have still to work in partnership with private and the public sector, with government, to make sure we give a good environment so people can think starting investment in Rwanda. Not only in Rwanda, but in Africa. But also one important thing is finance. Industries require capital. And in Africa, we don't have cheap money. Our level of borrowing and our banks, we cannot sustain that kind of level if you want to build a long-term industry and solution. So that also is one of the challenges we can face. I say African face at the moment.
Presently, 94% of the drugs, vaccines, and medical equipment used in Africa is imported at a cost of more than $16 billion annually. Although 25% of the world's vaccines are used in Africa. The continent produces only 0.1% of those vaccines. The yellow fever vaccine is the only mass-produced one on the continent in Senegal and South Africa.
For example, we have diseases. We don't have tools to control, to prevent those diseases on this continent. COVID came as to demonstrate that this is actually not a problem for Africa alone. It's a problem of the entire world, because these diseases can emerge anywhere, anytime, and spread anywhere, anytime. We cannot say that investing in disease control in Africa is a donation or is something you're doing for Africa. No, it's for everyone, it's for humanity. Because at the end of the day, it concerns everyone. At least we agree on that second thing.
It is in this regard that organizers and participants at the conference alike are pushing to address this serious issue.
Yeah, so we are establishing the Ubuntu Health Impact Fund, which is a way of incentivizing pharmaceutical innovation and production in and for Africa. As you know, to innovate, to produce pharmaceuticals and diagnostics, you need funding. But in the current scheme of things, okay, which is guided by the TRIPS model, there's more innovation and more pharmaceutical production in the north, in the developed north or the west. And because that's where there's a promise of profit when innovation is done. But what this fund will do is that it will promise to reward those innovators and those pharmaceutical producers who are producing for Africa or are repurposing their medicines to have an impact on African disease and bring down the disease burden. That's why we have the word impact.
Also observed during the conference was Africa's participation in terms of global research in the health sector, which is at just 2%. Rwanda has been praised for the country's push towards health self-reliance on the African continent, soon to begin mass-producing vital vaccines in the near future. This report was filed by Jessica Agasaro for Rwanda Television News. Rwanda's Ministry of Gender and Family Promotion has announced that women and girls are making progress in technological development, but also highlights the need to address the issues that hinder the growth of the number of girls and women in the field. Olive Nete has more on that.
One of the obstacles preventing women's advancement in the technology sector is the low percentage of women and girls who are digitally literate. This is part of what was reiterated on during the consultative meeting for the 67th session of the Commission on the Status of Women, which will take place in the United States of America this year. Janet Kem, the United Nations Women's Representative in Rwanda, lists a few barriers to the advancement of women in this sector.
Many factors drive this gender disparity in the sector, including sociocultural and structural factors that hinder women and girls from pursuing and benefiting from the STEM education, as we heard from Madam P.S. Women often lack the right orientation, mentorship, and finances to pursue careers in this sector. Women and girls still are too often faced with discrimination and a number of harmful practices through technology, such as online gender-based violence. These challenges and more are even more acute for women and girls in rural and other difficult-to-reach areas.
Although there are still barriers preventing the advancement of women and girls in this field, particularly those who live in rural areas, the Ministry of Gender and Family Promotion demonstrates that progress has been made. However, the permanent secretary in this ministry, Batamuliza Mireille, notes that there is need to improve.
Today
we see women in various categories that use technological tools and use it well, which leads to beneficial projects. I may give an example of Hunger Pitch. Both the previous and the recent one were all won by girls. This portrays the message that women are able to in this sector. I think what needs to be done is to deal with the obstacles that hinder the growth of the number of women in this sector. There is need to increase the number of women in this sector, and I think we currently have a good status in that particular field in Rwanda. The 67th session of the Commission on the Status of Women will focus on the development of women in the field of technology and how they can use it to create innovations that will assist them in development, but also to the development of their respective nations. This meeting is scheduled to start from the 6th to the 17th March 2023. Olive Nete, RTV News.
Thank you, Olive. The city of Kigali has started a week-long campaign aimed at urging people to pay their taxes on time. With the details is Prince Manzi.
In order to continue emphasizing taxpayers to provide their taxes well and on time, every year, the city of Kigali organizes a week of campaigning on teaching taxpayers and collectors about laws and conditions in taxation. Some of the business owners say that such campaigns should leave them understanding laws in taxation that are usually a challenge. What we're willing to know and understand in this week, you find that laws in taxation challenge us due to the change in EBMs, and you find that someone is doing business but not aware of the taxation system, and you find that there is delay in declaring on time. That is what we want them to explain to us.
You find that people do not know about declaring, especially deadlines and requirements. But if they would explain all this to us and local administrations help us, it would be better because we are patriotic. We want the development of our country.
The Deputy Commissioner for Regions and Decentralized Taxes in the Rwanda Revenue Authority, Ernest Karasira, states that entrepreneurs are supposed to be aware of the laws on taxation. Lawyers say that when a law is out, everyone is supposed to know about it. Laws are released in the National Gazette and it is public, everyone can access it. The mayor of the Kigali city, Bidansi Rubingisa, states that in this week and the following days, there will be different programs of explaining laws in order to better tax services and on time in Kigali city. We have to know what we achieved together and appreciate good taxpayers, especially taxes collected by local administrations, and have a campaign of explaining laws because there are always new people in business sector and for those in the sector to know more. Last fiscal year, the budget of the Kigali city was 145 billion Rwanda francs. 49.5% of this budget was from taxes paid by citizens. Prince Manzi, RTV News.
Businesses that use Momo Pay say they are incurring losses due to charges related to the service and a cost that they are prohibited from passing on to their customers. Prince Manzi once more.
Some buyers and entrepreneurs say that using Momo Pay, a mobile funds transaction system, results into them falling into losses. These losses are based on the 0.5% charge on entrepreneurs when received more than 4,000 Rwandan francs. We believe this Momo Pay is in favor of the MTN only. When one pays me on my mobile money account, I accept it. But the challenge is that when you want to withdraw, they charge us, and yet we have not added extra funds on the client payment. The sales manager in the Mobile Money Rwanda Limited, Jean-Paul Musugi, states that there is no loss in using Momo Pay compared to other benefits in line with it, including different free services. When you compare the loss and gains in using Momo Pay as a business person, obviously you cannot rule out and say that they face losses. Instead, it is beneficial. I'll be giving examples. It saves time and money one would use for sending and receiving money. All these are benefits. The public digitization analyst in the Ministry of ICT and Innovation, Angelo Munezero, states that entrepreneurs that are paid using MomoPay, they should also use it in retailing as it is free. He adds that they are collaborating with different institutions in charge for raising awareness so that citizens can participate highly in using technology. First thing, we want that entrepreneurs paid on MomoPay, instead of withdrawing, they should use the funds in retailing. We are strengthening the campaign in collaboration with different sectors in charge, especially economic sectors, in order to increase the number of citizens using the technology. 200,000 of entrepreneurs are recorded to be using MomoPay day to day, and the citizens using this system are increasing as 2 million citizens are recorded to be using it. Prince Manzi, RwandaTV News.
That brings us to the end of this edition of the News in English. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us, and goodbye.